What we might do is actually go, I think we're going to go first to Maria. Maria, can I ask if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen? Thank you very much. Welcome, Maria, to us. Maria is very qualified. She's part of our committee. We've got a governance committee that particularly looking at IT, communications and all that sort of thing around common things that have changed. And we're going to look at those things tonight. So Maria, I'll kick it off with you if that's all right.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am joining you from Sydney. I am an E-Club member with Peninsula 2.0. It is also storming here, so I will have to apologize in advance. We may have a dog start barking because she doesn't like thunder and storms. But yes, we are storming. Before we actually start, I would like to take this moment to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners, custodians and elders past and present of the Indigenous nations on whose lands we live, work and replenish. We honour their legacy of responsible custodianship by continuing to care for country wherever we wander. So I'm actually joining you this evening from Darkinjung country, which is central coast of New South Wales. Can everyone see my shared screen for the moment? Yes? I'm hoping that's a yes. So there are a couple of things I wanted to go over with you. For those of you that attended the President-elect training a few months back, I think it was August, you may remember these screens. I'm going to share them again because we have a number of people who didn't attend that session. So since COVID, the World Economic Forum predicts that 90% of jobs across the global marketplace will require digital skills by 2030. And this is actually the Future of Jobs report. And this came out in October last year. Now, there was also a new work standard report that came out also last year for the Foundation for Young Australians. And the Australian context reflects these global trends. But what's different here is it's actually accelerated. So the computer and digital literacy is set to become a non-negotiable requirement for 90% of roles within 5 years within Australia because of the way we operate, our geographical spread, and also our modes of work and communications. So this is all organisations across government, corporate, but also not-for-profits and volunteer groups. So we as an organisation, especially a legacy organisation like Rotary, we do have an inherent requirement and a responsibility, excuse me, to ensure that all of our members and our clubs are supported through this transition. Now, many of you may not be aware, but in November last year, the Department of Home Affairs released Australia's cybersecurity strategy. And this was in direct response to the number of ransomware, bugs, viruses, malware, viruses that came through people's digital channels, laptops, especially those that don't have adequate firewall, because everyone was forced to go remote last year. So what this cybersecurity strategy covered are the website essentials. So personal usage, but also organizational usage. There are some must-haves we must be able to roll out. So security must-haves include your domain name, so the actual name of your website, that you own it, and we know who actually has a public liability of owning that domain name, the domain privacy and security, an SSL certificate. So you will see that as a little lock on your browser if you're ever online. And SSL basically stands for Secure Sockets Layer. So it's a secured way of being able to connect, particularly for payments online. Hosting panels, website security, website backup. And for those of us that already have web pages that have been created, it might be that you need to migrate your web pages into a hosting panel or an environment that is more secure. And with that as well comes some basics. If you're going to have websites and social media presence, you need to have a privacy policy. How are private information being collected? How are they being stored? How are they distributed? Are they being accessed by third parties that are based overseas or not? We need to be able to explain that when we're actually collecting private information on behalf of the club or for our businesses. For fundraising, for example, for raffles, for events, and so forth. And if we do have websites, we need to have website terms and conditions. So it makes it very, very clear around images, content, intellectual property, who owns that content. And if anyone was to use it illegally or try to post a Rotary Club to the rest of the world and collect money, and all the donors think they're donating to a Rotary Club, then there is an avenue for us to pursue either shutdown or to actually chase them through the legal procedures. Another piece of work that's come through, and this has been around for the last 5-6 years, and this is a critical one because the online safety legislation will become law on the 23rd of January 2022. So we've got a couple of months before this actually rolls out. And this e-safety bill is actually the first of its kind in the world that's fully funded and also supported by the criminal law system. So this particular office started back in 2015 under the Enhancing Online Safety Act. And initially it was created as a body to protect children against online predatory behavior. But of course, over time, it has expanded to include its powers under the Australian government legislation to foster online safety for everybody, and particularly now vulnerable elderly members of our communities who are being scammed without their knowledge. So the E-Safety Commissioner also has powers and functions under the following schedules: under the Broadcasting Services Act, under the Telecommunications Act, and under the Enhancing Online Safety. And all of these schedules also have a section attached to the Criminal Code Act of 1995. So I guess bullying behavior, defamatory behavior, behavior that is under context is deemed illegal within this statute will now also be linked into Criminal Code Act, and obviously gathering evidence as a process. So key things that the E-Safety Commissioner will cover are safety, harassing and violent behaviour online as part of a domestic and family violence issue, adult cyber abuse, cyberbullying, unwanted or unsafe contact, sending nudes and sexting, sextortion, illegal and harmful content. And there's also guidelines that they'll give us around the use of social media and online chats. Frontline workers and support providers will also get special training. And some key tips and free training around how to build reputation and how to collect evidence should you believe there's actually been a breach. And then, of course, being the first in the world to have this legislation, we will be at the forefront of international leadership and collaboration around online safety. So there'll be more coming around this. But before this legislation comes into law in January, something else came up in September through the Australian High Court. And this was actually a case against 3 key national news coverage entities. And it was against, there was a story that they had posted. And of course, because it's a public space, lots of users were commenting on it. The publishers themselves had no knowledge of it, had never approved it, didn't even realize it was on there, but it had, according to the High Court, it had defamed, a person, and they took them to court and they won. So as part of that ruling, there are now some recommendations on pin posts and Facebook pages. Now, the key aspect of the particular ruling itself is when this incident happened, Facebook at the time did not have the option or did not have the functionality to actually turn off commenting or turn off public commenting on their pages. They now have that functionality. However, we're not sure whether all admin pages, admins on the pages know how to do so, and are they handing over that skill set to those that are administering their public pages? In our case, all the Rotary Club Facebook pages. And many of our Rotary Club pages are quite engaged. It gets a lot of organic reach, shares, commenting, and so forth. So this particular recommended pin post we'll show you how to do this, and we'll actually send it through as a training video. This was prepared for us by the team at Virtual Legal, the principal Katie Richards and Paige Bailey, and that is actually their email address there. And they do have, and so this is one of those forefront of legal work at the moment. And they actually have a body of interns, both Victorian-based and nationally based, that are doing pro bono work, assisting, particularly with the new laws that are rolling out. So we thank them for their assistance in putting this together. And the other recommendation they are showing as well, if there are clubs that have engaged, but also they have specific admin pages that are tech savvy, that know Facebook really well, are some recommended actions on highly engaged Facebook pages. So if you don't want to upset, for example, your community base on your Facebook, especially if they're really passionate and highly engaged, we might want to take a leaf from the book of the ABC pages, which is they've actually posted this comment to say we've closed comments on this post as moderator source is no longer available. So that means that, we'll make it very clear that it's a volunteer run page and that the volunteers are now offline. And so therefore we're turning off comments at this stage. And what they've done ahead of as well is to put in a link to their terms, conditions of use, or, terms and conditions of participating in their social media pages. And this is why it's important that if you have a website, either through Club Runner or if you're doing it as a custom build, that you have a section in there around terms, conditions, privacy and so forth, because then you can link this particular, comment or moderator comms straight to that terms of use. So that was my bit. Hopefully that wasn't too long, and I'm sure everyone has lots and lots of questions. So I'm going to stop share right there and go back to the room for some Q&A. Tim, while I've got the whole entire room, I just want to expand a little bit around some requirements in the cybersecurity strategy. So if you're an organization and you have a social media presence, you have a web page and so forth, part of the good governance model really should be the things that I identified before, the domain name. So if you have a domain name and you've used Rotary Club of Sales.org, for example, identify if you actually own that domain name, who's actually looking after the domain name. So at the very basics, the office bearers in your club should have access, login details and so forth, and there should be an identified digital champion or contact within your club, and that needs to be indicated on your constitution, for example, your annual general reports at the end of it to say that these digital assets are running, and currently for this reporting year, these are the admins for these pages, and they are active members of the club, because we know so many stories, not just from Rotary, but lots of legacy clubs at the moment, and even small businesses where they've had a family member, a friend, and other third parties who are not even part of the club have created the Facebook pages, the websites and so forth, and now they have rogue Facebook pages and websites that they're trying to actually shut down, but no one knows who's got logins and who doesn't and so forth. So that was my additional point, if that could be, including identifying if you've got payment systems coming through, like a link to PayPal, for example, that you actually have the number of your SSL certification identified in your constitution documents or your annual general reports. So all is above board, because that then ties into the insurance policies. Most insurance policies these days under OPEX will actually have coverage for digital risk. So,
thanks, Maria. And look, there's a few questions there already, which is great. By the way, tonight we're only providing advice. Obviously, everyone's needs are different, everyone's skills are different. As a district, that's really our job, is to provide advice. We're not going to say you must do this. We might recommend something, and I think, Maria, the recommendation would be especially if you don't have anyone who's willing or well skilled in monitoring the comments on, for example, Facebook, you would recommend they turn comments off, would you?
Absolutely, that would be. Then you're completely taking out any risk.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I might just pop over to Mark Humphreys now, because I know many of you use Club Runner as your website, and there's been a couple of questions out there, Mark, just about, does Club Runner cover off on these terms and conditions and other things? Would you mind picking this up?
Yeah, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Maria. We've all got lots of different websites being hosted out there. And as Maria touched on, there are a few things that you do need to be very aware of. Now, I'll take this in two parts. If you have Club Runner as your club management tool and use it for your Facebook, use it for your web page and things, you already have a lot of the things already ticked off. So as Maria touched on, does it have an SSL certificate? Yes, it does. So you don't have to worry about that. Club Runner manages that for you. In relation to terms and conditions and privacy, no, it doesn't. Yes, your website does have a default set of terms on there, or a privacy statement. If you go right to the very bottom of Club Runner, you will see in the footer, privacy statement. That is a Canadian-based privacy statement. So if you have that on there, you are bound by Canadian law, not Australian law. So you need to ensure that you update to the Australian terms and conditions. To facilitate that for people, and a little bit later on, I'll share you my screen. We have developed a standard set that you can use for your websites. All you need to do is just change some of the words. You take out District 982 and put your club name in, or put your club ABN in there, and then you can upload them and use those, and then that will cover you off. Now, the second part, as I said, is a lot of clubs out there have third-party people looking after your websites. So you need to ensure that you get all of the data that Maria was talking about. Who manages the domain for you? Who manages this SSL certificate? Do you have one? Do you have a terms and conditions on there as well? You will need to ensure that you get all of these updated. Either you do it yourself, or you need to get your third-party provider to do it. And again, you can use the standard district terms and conditions, which are already uploaded on the district's website, just to make it a little bit easier for you. Thanks, Tim.
Mark? Yeah, and we will, I think, Maria, you're happy to share your PowerPoint because I've, of course, got everyone's email addresses who've registered. So we can send that out, or put it on our Facebook, put it on our district website. Maybe that people can look at the PDF. We do have Carol Crew, of course, is our IT support person for district, and I don't want to throw her under the bus here, but I'm sure with Mark and a few of us, we'll be able to help district clubs get these things sort of right, what you need to do. Look, and I'm sure there's a couple of questions we've got there. Maybe we'll just cover off on that. I'll just quickly go. I think we've covered that it's under Canadian law, so it does need changing. What defines skill with Facebook? Good question, Maria. What do you think? Was it possible to turn off the moderation when the volunteer moderator is not available? I think you did cover that.
Yes, so that's why you turn it off, and it's basically another turn on if they want to go back in later. So they can certainly do that, and it won't stop them from liking and sharing to their pages, or sharing it in their messenger, for example. It's just the commenting part is just shut down.
Thank you. Barry Irwin's also asked, does district provide funding and/or grants for online security and online presence? I don't believe so, but maybe we can take that under advisement or put it to the district. But of course, district only gets money from members, so it just depends if you want the members to pay for it or whether you can do it somehow yourself. Let's look at that afterwards. Are we all back? It looks like we are. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I think, and perhaps I'll direct the questions. Would anyone like to summarise their group, perhaps Maria, and what you came up with?
So my group, we talked about how to put the functionality from the front end if you're using a mobile phone or back end if you're using a mobile phone versus desktop. So what I've said to my breakout room is that I'll do a video of how to actually set it from a desktop and a mobile phone. If you're the administrator, probably a couple of ideas there are how Ross said at the very end before we actually came back to the main room, is that the club needs to identify and own domain and so forth, rather than giving that power to a third party, especially if it's not club runner. So if it's not the organised recommended template. And yeah, so that was there anything else that we needed to add, Di? And have my group and Mary. I wish you were.
That's all right. Well, I'll move on to.
Barry, you were saying, Barry?
Yes, Maria, a good session. Ross came up with a good point in our breakout session. He suggested, or his club doesn't use Facebook at all. That's part of their club policy. What's your feeling there, Maria? Because we didn't get a chance to actually discuss that.
So I mean, it really is a club. It really is a club decision. Just from a trends point, because of the cybersecurity scandal and operational things that have been happening with Facebook and how they use their algorithms. A lot of businesses have actually gone off Facebook, and they've now just picked up LinkedIn and kept all their club business through LinkedIn. It doesn't matter what digital format you're using, whether you're doing Twitter, Instagram, or something else. I know we've got clubs with TikTok and YouTube channels, Vimeo, whatever it is that they're using to share information. You just need to have the cardinal rule. Who owns the account for that club, and they need to be an active member, or if they've actually engaged a third party to provide it for them, there needs to be a statement of service level agreement of some kind, identifying that a club office bearer, normally the secretary or the public officers, will have access to that account and can access and turn it off and do anything to it at any time to meet legal requirements. So it's the fact that some clubs just simply do not have access to it.
And just one more question in reference to social media and reaching out to the community. If the recommendation is not to use Facebook, what would you recommend? Because basically you can do target marketing through Facebook. I know you can do that through other social media platforms, but what's your opinion on that?
There are different types. Websites are normally what most people will have, because websites are public domains, which makes, some people may not be on Facebook. A lot of people aren't on LinkedIn. They may not have, Instagram, but websites are public domains. It's accessible anywhere in the world, so long as you've got a URL address. So most people will normally have some web page of some type, either to communicate to each other or to their, target audience, to reach out with events, information about the club and so on. So
thanks, Maria. Thanks, Barry. Yeah, look, we might just leave it there. You can put it in chat if you like, because we will, as we've just said, we will take up these questions. I know it's a limited time here. I just wouldn't mind going around all the groups very quickly. Mark, would you like to say, was there one thing that came out of your group that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks, I think the critical point actually came right at the very end of where Brian was saying there, when he and Ross took over the management of their websites, they went to Club Runner and suddenly found that they didn't know who controlled their domain name. Club Runner cannot help you with that. Brian will, I'm sure, be happy to sort of tell you the hoops that they had to jump through to get control of their domain. So that, I think, was the critical thing that came out of our discussion.
Thanks, Mark. And I'm sure there's lots of questions coming up now from people too. Please pop them in the chat, because we will record and respond to them to everyone by email later on, or maybe another session. We'll see how we go. Paul Mee, DGE, how was your group? Anything came out of that?
Yep, thank you. Thanks very much, Tim. Yeah, we obviously talked about the same issues, and, you know, Facebook and the website. And look, we just went round the screen and we had 2 clubs on board that did not have a person in charge of their website, and therefore the website was not being updated regularly, etc., or proper administration of the website, which is obviously dangerous. We also had 7 clubs in our room 1 who do not have a backup person for their website or Facebook site. And once again, you know, that would seem to all of us to be a little bit of a weakness. Generally speaking, there was comments, concern about the lack of skills in the club, in some clubs, with regard to the digital aspect of the club through websites and Facebook sites. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Paul. David Hanlon, thank you, your group.
Okay. Yes, we had a good discussion there, and I think the one thing that came out of this is that we all need to go back and have a look at the actual sites and ensure that we have actually got someone identified as the administrator. The other thing is that that we understand and have some sort of policy around the content that goes onto these sites. What else was there? Oh, and there was a bit of discussion around the actual publication of photos, the process that we need to put in place for that. So I think work in progress for most of the clubs to go back and check and make sure that that they know what they've got, and bring it up to date with what Marie suggested tonight.
Thanks, David. I took over Carol's group because Carol's internet fell down. So that's great. And I'm sorry about that. But look, I think the main thing that came out was this discussion about how likely are we going to be affected, and what is the penalty if we do bring upon a case upon ourselves. Maria, you're probably more you know, able to answer that, perhaps.
Is it a question in the chat, Tim?
No, it's, this has just came out of our group. How liable we are and how likely are we to get any of these sort of things happening to a club, a group of volunteers?
You're definitely legally liable, because that's what the eSafety, the Online Safety Act is about, and that's what cybersecurity strategy is about. If you've attached your name, your branding, your club identity to that digital asset, then technically, if it's an incorporated club, then it's the office bearers responsible. Because
Thank you.
Actually, it's the incorporated club's asset that's out there.
Look, I know it's a difficult job, but has anyone got, now I know Barry's got another question up his sleeve there. Has anyone, maybe Barry could ask his question, and anyone else, then we could open it. There's nothing too much in chat, I don't think. Did you want to ask yours, Barry?
Sorry, I was just scratching my head.
Is that okay?
I was just scratching my head, Tim. Sorry.
Generally in life or just now? That's right.
Just scratching my head. Sorry, mate.
That's okay. I thought you had one from before. Has anyone got a question they'd like to ask? Or Terry Williams, yes. Sorry, I can't see everyone's hands. So if
Yep,
you
I'm here, Tim.
Yep.
Tim, I was just wondering, we don't seem to have much of a handle on stuff apart from asking a guy like known as Tim Moore. He seems to be pretty good at it, but how easy is it to close down a website if you want to get rid of one and start a new one? Is it possible to close one down and start again if you just can't get it to work?
Yeah, Terry, I can answer that question. There is actually a reporting channel. It's currently sitting with cyber.gov.au, but it will be moved to the Office of the E-Safety Commissioner from January. So there's a bit of a lag. However, the E-Safety Commissioner's office will actually take requests now. So with Facebook, it's easy because there's a little triple dot to say report this page and flag it as non-official, especially if they're using branding from Rotary, for example, or some other trademarked asset. But if it's a website, then cyber.gov.au or through the Office of the Commissioner, because this is exactly what they're trying to do. Also last year, if you've got a website that ends in .au, there's actually additional registration requirements to prove that the website definitely is on-prem within Australian soil and Australian
Thanks,
jurisdiction.
Maureen. Ross White had his hand up.
He did. Look, I know we're pressed for time. When I came into the presidentship, I found that due to vested interests within our club, our sites had been hijacked by friends of friends. So I utilised Mark Humphreys and we retrieved ownership. We started a new site for our thing because we didn't have ownership of our own webpage. And then we bombarded it so we got to the top of the page. And we have a deliberate system of linking we're very careful as to what stories we put in the bulletin. They selectively go onto the webpage and so on. So that is monitored by me. And although I'm now the feather duster, well and truly the feather duster, it's monitored by me, and we have a magazine editor, and we have 3 other people in the club who are more than familiar with Club Runner because we use the whole platform. And that's what you need to do to get familiarity. You've got to use the lot, email, everything.
Thanks, Ross. Yeah, and there's no doubt that clubs are having all sorts of trouble, and it's great that you're all here and at least experiencing that. Mark has put on chat that we could have a subsequent session about how to, especially for people using Club Runner. And we're not salespeople for Club Runner, don't get that idea, but many we know have that. And we can show you, and Mark's happy to show you how to change the terms and conditions and the privacy policy and look at some other things there. And Carol, I'm sure I'll throw her under the bus again. She was off before, so she didn't know what I was saying. But we'd love her to be involved in that too as our IT, part of our IT committee, well, chair of IT in our district, yeah. Just aware that time is upon us. We could go on a bit more, but I feel that if everyone's happy, we might finish up. Can I just get an overall show of hands who uses Club Runner in the district? Because I don't think I've got, so it's whose club doesn't have a website? Is there anything? Couple? Yeah.
Sorry, we've got two because our satellite club uses Club Runner as well.
Oh, sure. You should have given them a page. That's right.
Yes, we will.
Di Harrison has a hand up. Thank you, Di. Yeah. And then Con, I'll ask. Yeah. Di, do you want to go first? Maybe we might go to Con first then. That's all right.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Di, you go for it. Yeah, and then Con.
I was just responding, but I did have a question. Should we shut down our club Facebook?
I think someone else asked that too. Maria, what would be your comment about that?
My comment on that quickly would just be, well, how active is your support base and your community base, and how you communicate events and goings on with the club? Because we know some clubs, they rely on their Facebook pages to build community and talk to the community. So
At the moment,
yeah.
we're not doing any events, so it's really not active at all.
Just know as well that any previous photos, events, posts that you put in there, you can actually download all of them if you are planning to shut it down. So,
Yep.
but and then
Absolutely.
the other question would be, if you were to shut it down, how else would your, target audience, donors, supporters reach you?
Thank you. Thanks, Di. Thanks, Maria. Con. Just need to unmute. That's it.
I'll do that. My question was, have we had any cases that clubs have got into difficulty because of some issues that they might not follow the regulations?
Maria, did you want to, or Mark want to answer that? You might know more than I.
To date in our district, no, we haven't. That I have been made aware of. So at the moment, no.
I do know of clubs overseas that are Rotary based that have had issues around conversations that happen on their Facebook page. Luckily for them, they're not in Australia, because that well and truly would have been a finable activity.
Well, that's good.
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, that's right. Lara, did you have a question? Last one.
Yes, I do. We've only just developed a document, a permission form for using photos of people in or outside of the club on any of our bulletins, websites and so forth. So should we take down what we've already got, those people who've never been asked permission?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Sorry, Maria. You go.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And I've just got Barry. Yes, Barry Irwine.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Tim. So we also use our Facebook site for membership for recruiting. So, even though we haven't been able to do much during the lockdown, we have been able to pick up some members through, and potential members for when we get back to the norm, through Facebook. So that's why I'm quite interested, in social media. Like, you don't have to have Facebook, but that's why I was asking Maria, I know about LinkedIn and all those others, so we could, but I still think you need some sort of media platform, or social platform where you can reach out to the community for potential members, because, letterbox dropping and all that other rubbish you can't even do now, and that doesn't really get there. And you can actually target different areas. I know with Facebook, it's got a good targeting system. So we'll probably, I would suggest that we get rid of it completely. Maybe you need to look at it and maybe talk to somebody like Maria or somebody who's more of an expert with Facebook if you don't have anybody within your club.
Good point, Barry. I agree totally. Yeah, well, probably the worst case is that you shut off your comments while you haven't got anyone monitoring it. That's probably the main thing, isn't it? Linda, yes, welcome.
Yes, you've just actually said what I've said. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If it's just a matter of shutting down your comments, or B, if you're really active and want comments, that you've got someone who's prepared to put that disclaimer up when you're not looking at the comments, you're actually closing down a great opportunity to sell your club out there. So I think we just need to take note of what the message is actually saying. It's not saying walk away from Facebook. It's just saying make sure that you've got all those things in place so you can use Facebook to its advantage.
Thank you.
And
thank
as
you,
you see,
everyone.
sorry, to add to Linda's comment as well, if you see the explainer notes underneath the actual in-post recommended comms, it's that this might be Facebook specific, but it's all digital media specific if you think about, the ramifications and the extension of the defamation. So it doesn't matter which digital format you're in, this will eventually apply.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we might end. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Sorry, I got one last question, Tim.
Just hang on a sec, because I wanted to say this before we say it. I was just, we'll let you get that through, Brian, in a sec. But please, if you've got any other questions, put them in chat or feel free to email me, and I can pass them on to the people that might be able to help you. We will.
Tim, but Eula Sheathers had her hand up for a little while, and I don't think you noticed.
Yeah, look, I think what we're going to have to do, if you use the raise hand under reactions, it pops up to the very top left-hand corner and I can see them. But with such a big screen, I do apologise. We could go on forever. I mean, if you feel that, I'll just give the thank yous, and then if you feel you don't need to stay, we can still have the other questions. So we've got a bit of time here. I would like to thank Maria particularly. I'd like to thank Mark, David, Paul, and Carol, and Linda, of course, because everyone's been very supportive, and good to see District Governor Bill here. We will do other sessions, and if you feel strongly that you think something should be covered, we do have planned, as I mentioned before, office holder compliance on boards, if you like, of Rotary clubs. That's one thing we want to do, because there's certainly things happening there and have always happened. There's acts of parliament, and also fundraising, which has come to, we've done a lot of those things in our President-elect training, but we're now getting it down, we think, more generally for boards and other people interested.